When we handle conflict in a healthy way, the outcome is actually peace. Peace between us and whomever we're having conflict with, and peace in our own souls. And what ends up happening is when we're dismissive, it communicates disrespect. And no relationship can survive in the long haul when there is an atmosphere of disrespect.
Well, Donna, welcome to the Awesome Marriage Podcast. Thank you for being here today. It's so good to have you, and I'm excited about getting to talk about this book and all the things that go along with that.
Well, thank you for having me. I am really excited to be on the show today.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited because it's such an important topic. So let's kind of get into it. The book is Healthy Conflict, Peaceful Life. My experience as a counselor, most people don't put the words conflict and peace in the same sentence. So how did you get there?
Right. Well, you are exactly right. When we think of conflict, we don't think of peace. We think of anything but. But when we handle conflict in a healthy way, the outcome is actually peace. Peace between us and whomever we're having conflict with, and peace in our own souls. Because as you know, as I know, as all your listeners know, when we are in conflict with someone, especially our spouse, because that's who we're in closest relationship, most intimate relationship with, it literally affects everything about us. I mean, we still may function on the outside. We make the kids' lunches, we drive carpool, we go to work, we run our errands, we function. But on the inside, we are torn to pieces, and we are replaying, why did he say that? Why did I say that? Why didn't I say that? We're replaying it over and over, and it literally consumes us. But if we learn how to handle it in a healthy way, we can learn how to resolve it. And then we end up peaceful, both in our relationship with our spouse and just in our own souls. So it's a win if we can learn to have a healthy conflict so we can have a peaceful life.
Absolutely. And I think that's we've done that in our marriage. People at counsel do that. I mean, we look kind of good on the outside, but inside we feel distant. We're trying to figure out what's our next step. What do we do? Early in marriage, Nancy and I wouldn't speak to each other for 2 or 3 days, just because we didn't know what we wanted to say, or if we didn't want to keep fighting, but we didn't know how to get over that, how to get that. And so, in counseling, people so many times come in and they've had that conflict during the week and not resolved, and they just come in and they sit as far apart as on the couch from each other as they can, because there's just that what we want in marriage is not there because of the conflict.
Well, I like to say that the reason so many of us think that conflict is bad is, frankly, we never learned to see how conflict can turn out good. And so we come to conflict and we automatically, our defenses go up because we go, uh-oh, conflict. This is not a good thing. But it's not conflict that makes, our relationship good or bad. Conflict just is. It's not its presence that makes it good or bad. It's our practices in the midst of its presence. And so that's what we have to learn. So, okay, since conflict is inevitable, it's just going to be in a marriage. How do we handle it in a healthy way so that we can end up with this peaceful marriage and this peaceful life and this peaceful home, frankly?
Yeah, because I think conflict is inevitable. I mean, just our male-female differences alone are enough to cause some conflict. And then we get family of origins, we get life experiences, we get all those things. And probably the later in life someone gets married, the more of those kind of things of unhealthy conflict that kind of pile up. And so, when we got married at 20, I didn't think we would fight. I thought, we're just we love each other and we're just going to coast. And I don't remember exactly what our first fight was about, but I can remember thinking, what is going on here? We love each other. We're not supposed to be fighting, but we did, and we had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah, and we actually had our first argument on our honeymoon, the last day of our honeymoon, if you can believe it. And we laugh about it now. But here's what I think is so important for us to grasp is the fact that conflict is inevitable. And I know everybody listening is going, well, yes, of course. However, what we tend to do is when conflict happens, if we don't normalize it, then what we tend to think is conflict means there's something wrong with one of three things or a combination of these. So if we have conflict, that means there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with us. And conflict doesn't mean that necessarily. It just means you're two people that are living together that are going to have differences of opinions. And I think because so many of us grew up in homes where we didn't see conflict modeled well, or in this culture, a lot of broken homes where people walked out instead of worked things through, so that when we then end up experiencing conflict in our marriage, then we go to that place where, okay, this means something's wrong with us, or something's wrong with you, or something's wrong with me. And it doesn't. I just want to say to everybody listening, you are totally normal if you have conflict. Again, it's not its presence, it's our practices in the midst of its presence that make it good or bad. So
absolutely. So let's get down to some of the common mistakes that we make in approaching conflict. What are some of the things that you see?
Yeah. Well, in the book, I actually wrote a chapter called The 10 Biggest Mistakes That We Make in Marriage, because I just kind of figured, Dr. Kim, I'm a practical gal, if somebody can give me a list, Donna, don't do these things. That helps me, right? So I thought, okay, I couldn't find a list, so I just made one, and I think it's a pretty good list, actually. But as I've worked through this even more, the number one thing that I think the biggest mistake is to be dismissive of your partner's concerns. And nobody listening would intentionally say, yeah, I want to dismiss my husband or my wife's thoughts, feelings, and opinions or concerns. However, we accidentally do it more than we think we do. We dismiss our partner's thoughts, feelings, and opinions when we say things like, oh my gosh, again? Or why are you making this such a big deal? Or just get over it. Like, can't you just move past this? Or I don't have time for this right now. Or you're such a drama queen. Or, all these things. Or just frankly, just not listening is a really easy one where we dismiss our partner's concerns. And what ends up happening is when we're dismissive, it communicates disrespect. And no relationship can survive in the long haul when there is an atmosphere of disrespect. So that's why really keying into like, am I accidentally doing things where my spouse feels like I'm dismissing things that they're saying are important to them? And see, sometimes we do that because what's important to our spouse is not important to us.
Yeah.
Maybe our spouse really wants things orderly. But we're like, you know what? It's not a big deal to me. And so we go, is it really that big of a deal? So it's not important to us. So we think, why is it important to you? But when we completely just dismiss that, it communicates, well, you don't care about me. You're not listening to me, right? So that sets an undercurrent where then conflict is absolutely going to be inevitable.
And it goes deeper then. At that point, it goes deeper because it becomes personal to that person. Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you said that, because sometimes we can be dismissive with our words, but I love that you said sometimes it's just that nonverbal stuff that we do, or our body language that can be dismissive to our spouse. And so it's like, well, I didn't say anything. No, but you turned your back, or the expression on your face, or you rolled your eyes again, like my 14-year-old granddaughter. I mean, we do all those things that are dismissive. And I think some of them, you're right, we're probably not as conscious of as others. Maybe the verbal ones, but I think the nonverbal, sometimes we just do those and don't realize the message that we're sending to our spouse.
Yeah. And you're so right, because I was a communications major at UCLA and then did grad work at USC. And I still remember my freshman year learning something that just rocked my world. And that is 97% of communication is non-verbal. Yeah. And so it's the rolling of the eyes, it's the sighs, like,
Yes.
All those kinds of things. They are communicating something, and we can say, well, I didn't say anything, but we actually really did say a lot. So being dismissive is a huge, huge factor in dealing with conflict in a way that makes it actually turn out bad, not good. And, we don't want that. So if we can be aware of listening and attending. And one of the things, I actually learned this from my mom, Dr. Kim, and I just think it's really profound. And I've taken it with me, both in my parenting and in my marriage. And she said something to me actually when I was a teenager, and I was talking to her about something that was important to me. And I became aware, gosh, she's really listening. And this was was a typical teenage thing. She could have been very dismissive of it. And I actually said, gosh, Mom, you're listening to me. And she said, well, honey, if it's important to you, it's important to me.
Wow.
And I am telling you, that right there is a game changer, not only in parenting, but in marriage. If we can that can kind of be in the back of our mind as our spouse is telling us something. If it's important to him, it's important to me. Or if it's important to her, it's important to me. That right there will cause unity, and it will prevent so much conflict from happening. Just that mindset shift.
Absolutely. I can't remember when it was early in marriage, but a really wise man said that to me, because I'm sure I was complaining about something Nancy was doing or saying these kind of things. He said, if it's important to her, make it important to you. And I thought, yeah, that makes all sense. Now, have I done that perfectly all these years? No, but it makes a difference, because then your spouse feels valued and cared for, and that you don't have to really, I guess I learned you don't have to really understand everything that your spouse says or does. It's just accepting that and who they are, and not trying to change them.